Hi everybody, I'm Tim Anderson. I have a restaurant in Brixton called Nanban, and I got a cookbook called Nanban as well. We do what's called Japanese soul food, so quite hearty, filling, kind of Japanese junk food type stuff that I absolutely love. And I'm gonna do a dish that is an absolute classic of Japanese soul food today. It's called chicken karaage, Japanese fried chicken, which is in my mind probably the best fried chicken recipe you can make. And it's super easy actually. So first we're going to start with our marinade. So usually chicken karaage has a very simple marinade of sake and ginger and garlic and things like that. My marinade or my recipe is significantly more complicated. And actually what I'm showing you here today is not the same karaage that we make in the restaurant. That is a top secret recipe, but this is pretty close and it's very, very good. So we're going to start with some shallots. Banana shallots I'm using, the nice big long ones. 2 of them, but you can use the little shallots as well, in which case you'd need 4. So these just go into a blender, or you can use a food processor, or if you don't have these, you can just very finely mince. Then I'm gonna add some garlic. This is 10 cloves, just peeled in the blender as well. Then some fresh ginger, about 15-20 grams. It's been peeled. And I do want to slice this fairly thinly before we blend it, because one of my biggest pet peeves in cooking are the little fibers in ginger that don't break down very well in blenders or food processors if you chuck it in whole. So you want to slice this across the grain first to break those down so you don't have that weird hairy texture. Once you do, that goes in the blender as well. So then we got seasonings. Lots and lots of seasonings. We're going to do half a teaspoon of salt, quarter teaspoon-ish pepper, that's white pepper, which I really like in Japanese cooking, but black pepper's fine. Then we got some hot chili sauce, not too much. You don't want this to be spicy, you just want it to have a little bit of heat. Then we've got some rice vinegar. Rice vinegar is one of my favorite seasonings. It's very, very fresh and crisp. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it as well. It's a lovely vinegar. Then we've got some mirin. So mirin is a sweetened cooking sake. And that's gonna add some lovely sweetness. Then we've got some actual sake as well, which is of course Japanese rice wine. And that's got a lovely sort of savory quality to it, like a fermented rice flavor. Then we've got some sesame oil, not too much because it's quite a strong flavor. That goes in as well. Then some soy sauce, not too much because if you use a lot of soy sauce, this marinade becomes very dark and then it tends to burn when you fry it. And finally, we've got some fresh lime. So gonna give them a little roll just to get the juices flowing. And I need about 3 tablespoons or so of this. I'm gonna save 1/2 of these limes back for garnish and just squeeze the rest straight in there. Ooh. If you can get yuzu juice, by the way, that is excellent, but it is very expensive. Limes are nearly as good, but there's nothing quite like yuzu if you can get it. All right, then we blend. That's done, so now we're gonna prep our chicken. So one of the best things about chicken karaage is the size and shape of it, so that you get it's a great crunch to juicy chicken ratio. Instead of big chunks, like big joints of chicken like you get in American fried chicken, you get little sort of nugget-sized pieces. So that's what we're gonna do. And that's not just for flavor or texture, that's also because it helps them cook evenly and quickly. So you wanna cut chicken thighs, and by the way, these are boneless but skin-on chicken thighs, because there's so much flavor in the skin. And thighs are great because they're very juicy, they're very, very flavorful. But they don't have a lot of weird sinews in them like a drumstick or a leg. So most chicken thighs you'll get about 4 pieces out of. If the thighs are bigger, you get 5. If they're smaller, you'll just get 3 sometimes. All right, so that's our chicken prepped up, back in the bowl. And then we add the marinade. Lovely, which has so much flavor in it. Make sure everything's really nice and evenly coated. And then this will marinate for at least an hour. Actually, you could fry it just like this and it'd be pretty tasty, but the longer it marinates, the more flavor you'll get. So this will go into the fridge. We'll come back later. So we've got the chicken in its lovely marinade, just chilling out in the fridge. And most karaage, at this point, you would just flour and deep fry. Usually karaage uses what's called katakuriko, which is kind of like a potato starch. It's very, very light, very crispy. but I actually use corn flour for my karaage, which is even more crispy. It's sort of halfway between a flour and a potato starch texture. So we're gonna start with that. The other thing I'm doing that's slightly non-traditional for my karaage is making a seasoned flour like you'd get from American Fried Chicken, because I really like to pack as much flavor into this dish as possible. So we'll start with corn flour. We're gonna add to that a little bit of salt, a little bit of white pepper. Black pepper's fine as well. White and black sesame seeds, or just white or just black, it's all good. We've got some chili powder, just a tiny bit, some dried ginger, and then finally, this is dashi powder. So dashi is, of course, a Japanese stock made from smoked fish and kombu, seaweed. It's a really, really lovely flavor, really, really satisfying and smoky and fishy and fragrant. And this is essentially the stock cubed version, which makes a decent dashi actually, but what I like to use it for is seasoning other things. You put some of this in your stir fries, your fried rice, or like I'm doing now, your seasoned karaage flour, and it just sort of lifts the whole thing. It's got a great sort of satisfying, mouth-filling flavor. So we'll stir that all together, nice and well mixed. There we go. And now we're ready to deep fry. Okay, so we've got our seasoned flour ready to go, and our oil is up to temperature, so it's time for me to fry. Temperature is important with this dish because you really don't want this to burn. It'll taste really nasty, and obviously you don't want undercooked chicken. Nobody likes that. Not safe, not delicious. So 160, that's the temperature we're going for this size of chicken pieces. That'll get a great golden brown crust at the same time that it cooks through and stays really juicy. So 160. And by the way, every time you deep fry, you want to use a nice big pan where the sides come up very high above the level of the oil, so that if this does bubble up, it doesn't bubble up too much and overflow. All right, so we're going to take our marinated chicken, just let that marinade drip off a bit. Throw a few pieces at a time into that seasoned flour. And you're going to want to fry this in batches, by the way. Don't try to do all of it at once, because you will crowd the pan. And that'll do two things. One, the chicken will stick together and it won't cook nicely. And also the steam that generates from the chicken as the moisture inside evaporates away into the oil will actually start to steam the outside of the chicken as well. So you'll end up with sort of soft, sad chicken pieces instead of nice, crispy bits. All right, so make sure that these are really well coated as well. The more coating you have, the crispier, crunchier they'll be. And also you want to protect that marinade from the hot oil, because it does have sugar in it, does have soy sauce, and it'll burn if it touches the hot oil too much or is in contact for too long. All right, so we're gonna layer that into the oil. Lovely sizzle. Shake off as much flour as you can as well. And you're gonna wanna fry these for about 6 minutes or so. If you have a probe thermometer, a meat thermometer at home, it's a good idea to use this because you don't really know what's going on inside the chicken until you check it. And you can either do that by cutting into it or by probing it. It's the easiest way. There it is. Beautiful, golden, juicy, crunchy chicken karaage. And this will stay crispy for ages as well, so don't worry about doing it in batches. You can take your time with it. The main thing is just don't overcrowd that pan. You can just serve it as is, but you know, when you bring it to the table, it's pub food again, so you don't have to be fancy with it. Sometimes people serve this with a dip, like a mayonnaise or ponzu sauce, something like that, but to me, this chicken is just so crunchy and flavorful and juicy as it is. I don't really think it needs anything except for maybe some fresh lime. And that's it. That's chicken karaage. That is Japanese fried chicken, maybe the best fried chicken